Raiders head coach candidates coming up here on today's show. I'm Mitchell Renz. This is the Raiders Report, and you look for free Raiders videos every single day. Make sure you click that subscribe button. So coming up here on today's show, I'm going to tell you who right now is the front runner, the favorite for the Raiders head coaching job. I'm going to tell you every single candidate that the Raiders have either interviewed or reportedly are interested in interviewing. I'm going to tell you who my top head coach choice would be from the list of names right here. Then I got a list of names of my Raiders, can we please interview these candidates? And then at the very end, let's get insane. And I got an insane splash name to consider. Bottom line, if you want free Raiders content all day, every day, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because you're not going to find anybody out there that will out-hustle Jeremy, Chugs, and I. Let's go to the very first, the favorite for the Raiders head coaching job. And if you watched a lot of our videos, if you follow me on social media, this one's not going to be a surprise. As it stands right now, according to reports, Pete Carroll is the favorite for the job. Now, we've seen around the NFL, things can change very quickly, and I think that the Raiders were all in on Ben Johnson, missed on Johnson, and it sounds like right now Carroll is plan B. The Raiders did interview Carroll back on January 13th in person, which I do think is kind of interesting because it was their first, legit in-person interview, and there is a lot of speculation that Pete could be like a bridge head coach. Maybe they also are able to bring in a guy like Robert Saleh, but he's got tons of head coaching experience. Is he up there in age? Yeah. I mean, there was a 30-year stretch where he was a head coach, whether it was with the Jets, the Patriots, USC, or Seattle, but he has been able to do some good stuff. Defensive-minded guy, is a culture builder, and has ties to Jed Hughes, who he was part of that regime when he was hired there in Seattle. But that was the most obvious thing that I was going to tell you here on today's show. Everywhere else, this is going to get a little bit different from my typical Raiders head coach candidate videos that I do. Now, we're going to look at every candidate, and these are the names that are confirmed that the Raiders have said either A, I am interested in interviewing you, or B, have actually, in fact, taken that job or have at least interviewed for the job. Now, here's what we know. Mike Vrabel took the job in New England, and actually, as I am recording this video, the Patriots just hired Josh McDaniels to join Mike Vrabel. Ben Johnson got the job in Chicago. The other names that you see up here on screen are either interested in or, the Raiders have interviewed them. Though if you look there, Todd Monken, Steve Spagnuolo, they have the asterisk because the Raiders haven't interviewed them, and unfortunately, there is no date at the time that I am making this video for an interview to be set for those two guys. Though, if you follow some rumors, those are still names that the Raiders are apparently still interested in, at least just a little bit. So when you look at those candidates, right, I figured I got to say my top head coach choice. And I'm going to base it off of the names that I just showed you here. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to hit you guys with a YouTube ad break. While you're getting hit with that ad break, I want you to scroll on down, and I want you to answer the pinned comment. Who is your top choice to be the next Raiders head coach? My answer coming up here in just a moment. If I'm picking from just the names of the candidates that the Raiders have reached out to, the number one candidate that I am going to go with now is Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. And the fact that the Ravens just lost in the divisional round against the Bills, I'm picking up the phone and I'm trying to get on an interview with Monken. He was great at Georgia, and he is doing work right now in Baltimore. The run that Monken went on of just flat out winning can't go unnoticed. And look at Georgia's offense without Monken. Look at how good Lamar Jackson has played. He was an MVP in 2023. A year after, there was a lot of people just a few years ago that were like, oh, I don't know how good Lamar Jackson's going to be anymore. Got into a few injuries. He's playing the best football of his career, and quite frankly, I think his 2024 season was even better. Also, if you're the Raiders and you're going to try to build on offense, the one piece you got on offense right now, maybe two, Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers-Johnson. Brock Bowers has already showed you that he can be a dog, literally, with Monken. And then also, Monken's going to want to run a physical frickin' offense. Sounds almost perfect for JPJ and Brock Bowers, two players that are on the all-rookie team. So if I were to say right now, my Raiders head coach rankings based on the names that you see up on screen, here's how I would do it, and hear me out. Monken's number one. Pete Carroll is number two if You can also pair him with a good OC and DC. And I think that name would be Robert Saleh. The reason why Pete Carroll and Robert Saleh are over a name like Deion Sanders is because I hear that they could potentially be a package deal. If you're telling me they're not a package deal, I'll put Deion Sanders number 2 on that list because he can build a program, and I think it's the least risky because you're getting a quarterback and it's going to make a lot of money for Mark Davis. Coming up next here on the show, coaches that I want the Raiders to interview, because there's a lot of names out there. There's a lot of names where I'm like, I can't believe we're not interested in this guy. And what I don't want the Raiders to do is this. I don't want them to fall into a trap like they did last year. They wanted Kliff Kingsbury at OC. They were unable to get him. They panicked, and they went out and they fell in love with the first guy in Luke Getsy. Don't want that to happen again. The Raiders wanted Mike Vrabel. They wanted Ben Johnson. They are 0 for 2 on those 2 people. I don't want them to just jump in bed with the next name because they're worried about being single. You need to fall in love, but you got to wait for that perfect opportunity, that perfect guy, and I don't want them to rush into it. So names coming up here in a little bit are names that the Raiders need to put in a request for. I'll tell you who they are in just a moment, but Prize Picks is today's sponsor, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there. The big game, I don't know if you all know this, it's right around the corner, and the fact that it's almost here, it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you are correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Check out the promos tab to tail any of our super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Also, I'm pretty interested to watch this big game. I don't know about y'all. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. If anybody hung out with Chugs and I during the year, any watch party we did, we always had a Prize Picks lineup in. It makes the game that you're watching way, way more interesting. Those links are going to be down in the bottom, and they are going to be in the description of today's show. This was from the national championship game. Obviously, we did not get this one, which it is what it is. But what I'm trying to show you is, like, see how Will Howard got the 0.5 pass yards? Prize Picks is going to do that with a quarterback from the big game. So just keep that in mind. I love looking at the games, love watching the games, makes it a lot more interesting. Huge shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring. All right, coming up, some coaches that I would want the Raiders to interview. And these are all names that, quite frankly, I'm kind of shocked that the Raiders haven't at least, put out a few of these names out there. And I'm going to throw out a lot of names, okay? And I'm going to try to explain quickly why I would want certain names and why I would be very interested in it from top to bottom. First, let's talk about some of these OCs, like a guy like a Liam Coen, a guy like Joe Brady. If you were interested in a young dude like Ben Johnson to try to find that next Sean McVay, why the hell wouldn't you be interested in a Liam Coen or a dude like Joe Brady, maybe even a Kliff Kingsbury? If you're looking at a big name like a Mike Vrabel, why wouldn't you be interested in Mike McCarthy, who, quite frankly, I think is maybe the most deserving on this list? If you want to go more of a defensive-minded guy, Brian Flores, I think, would be a great pairing. He's got a relationship with Tom Brady underneath a dude potentially like Pete Carroll. And then you got Bruce Arians down there. If you want to bring in somebody that's trying to do exactly what you're trying to do with Pete Carroll, but has already won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, John Spytek makes a lot of sense. I also think Frank Reich and some of his connections that he has with a guy maybe like an Ed Dodds. Ed Dodds came in also with Pete Carroll in Seattle. A lot of different names to throw out there, but this is a list of if the Raiders missed out on Ben and then they missed out on Mike Vrabel, instead of hitting that panic button and say we have to hire one of the guys that we put in an interview request for, I don't think that that's the case. Those are 10 other candidates right there that, quite frankly, are really good candidates. If the Bears can interview 20 head coach candidates, why can't the Raiders do it? You have nothing to lose, Las Vegas. Let's go to the last thing here. The insane splash. Drip, drip, wet, wet. And it's Deion Sanders. And the reason why that I say it's Deion Sanders, and if you missed my live show on Tuesday, if you're watching my live show now, you probably know a lot of the things that I'm going to say. But Deion Sanders is very interested in the Raiders' job. When you hire Deion Sanders, you're guaranteed to fix your biggest issue, quarterback. You're going to be able to bring in Shador. Sanders showed interest in the Raiders' job, but was told that, the Raiders aren't interested. The reason why I do this is because for the Raiders beat reporters to miss as bad as what they did on the Ben Johnson story, I think that there's a chance that they might have missed that the Raiders aren't interested in Deion. And them being not interested then is totally different than them not being interested now. They weren't interested then because they had their eyes on Ben Johnson. Now that situation is over. And I think one of the safest things that you could do if you were the Raiders is hire Deion because of the amount of money that it makes. So if you want to go check out a video that I put out on Tuesday after our live show, this is the thumbnail to it. Deion to Vegas after Ben Johnson takes the Bears job. This video is going to be in the comments. It's also going to be in the description of today's show. Go check it out to see more of my reasons why I think Deion to Vegas is kind of an interesting idea that more people need to revisit and consider. So in conclusion here, there are plenty of good head coach candidates still available for the Raiders. You don't need to just fall in love and jump into bed like you did last offseason with Luke Getsy. I do really want the Raiders to interview guys like Monken, Liam Coen, and a guy like Deion Sanders. I think that reopens a lot of the things. I would actually also add Mike McCarthy here to this list. And even though the Raiders missed on those two options, don't rush into a bad hire. We got to make the right choice, and I'm hoping that the Raiders make the right choice this offseason.